Good evening, everyone, and welcome to week 3 of Advent. My name is Jo Bell. I'll be your host tonight, and just want to share a little tiny bit of logistics. We always love, because we know many folks watch the recording, so we'd love it if, as you come in tonight, you go ahead and enable your video. We'd love to see your faces if that's possible for you, bandwidth-wise. Part of that is putting ourselves in gallery view. We'd love to just kind of create community. That's one of the things that Sanctuary has always been kind of just really passionate about. So that way, if you can do that, it feels like we're all sitting together there up in your living room, Jane Ann. And anyway, also, if you'd like, you can open the chat box and let us know your real name. Sometimes people have iPhone instead, and maybe where you're calling in from, so we can get a nice global feel. I know we're international from a US, Canada, and Dominican Republic so far, and Palm Springs too, Gary, right? That's kind of way out there in the warm weather. The rest of us aren't quite experiencing that right now. But are you getting rain, Gary? Really bad rains?
Actually, today is a great big storm. We only get this once every several years, but yes. Flood warning of all things, like around here, a half an inch is a major flood. So
absolutely.
We don't have storm sewers and very many gutters. We just have troughs in the desert that the water flows out in.
Yeah, so. And the earth doesn't drink it up where you are as much as it would like to. Maybe we
no.
Yeah, we should start tonight with a little bit of sending prayers to all those in Kentucky, and just the devastation of those storms this week, just still unheard of, to think of the horror and the loss. And so just please keep those folks in your prayers as you go through your week, a week where we're trying to focus on joy. And finally, just the ways we communicate with you all. Most of you, I hope, know that if you give us your cell phone number, Barb will send you a little one-line text on Tuesdays, just reminding you that it indeed is Tuesday. I love that text, Barb. Thank you so much. Often reminds me it is Tuesday. Get your Tuesday things done, Joe. We also have a Facebook page called Sanctuary in the Woods. Although we're Sanctuary online, and we've been Sanctuary at Sea and Sanctuary on the road, our primary function is building a retreat center here deep in the woods east of Austin, Texas. So we also post each week's recording up on our Facebook page. So if you really enjoyed a conversation or a teaching, tonight we're going to talk about Islam, a religion maybe a lot of us don't quite understand as well as some other of the world's great religions. And if you think somebody would enjoy that, you could just send them over to the Facebook page, and it's an easy way to connect. Finally, the last thing is to send you or to our email address at talktous@Sanctuary in the Woods. If you'd like to be added to our email address list, we don't spam you. We do send out about 1 email a week, and that just lets you know, one, here's what happened last week, and a nice direct link to the recording in our YouTube channel, as well as what's coming up at Sanctuary. So that's kind of the deal here. And Ellen, perfect timing. I'm just going to announce the book club here in a minute, Ellen, but tonight is week 3, my friends. So if you haven't been able to do this
very comfortable
all 3 weeks, our first week on November 30th was Judaism and the Festival of Lights of Hanukkah explained in the teaching. Last week was Hinduism and Buddhism, and we had gorgeous pictures, and we learned about Diwali and Loy Krathong. Tonight, of course, Islam, and next week, Christianity. Also, as you're listening to Ken's teaching, I want you to be thinking tonight, is there anything that you or your family or an organization that you belong to that does kind of like an act of service? Anything that you do that makes the holiday a little more special for someone else? And next week, I would love you to send in at talktous@sanctuaryinthewoods.com photos of your most memorable holiday. Okay, most memorable. So that's a really wide net. I'd love some phenomenal photos. I know Kelly and Cheryl tomorrow are doing our advertising video for next week. I'm excited to see that myself, ladies. So there you go. And finally, I am always so proud of our book club. This is why I said, Ellen, welcome to all these phenomenal books. And let's see, this month we are skipping. So on the 28th of December, we are taking a night off at Sanctuary. And then this book, The Personal Librarian, got great reviews. It's actually quite a new book. And it will be, the conversation will be January 25th. So plenty of time to do your reading or your listening if you're an Audible person. And there we have it. So that is the night. I'm going to hand this over to Jane Ann. Jane Ann, I'd love you to kind of bring us into our Advent week.
Okay.
Ritual of the candle lighting.
Thanks, Thank you, Joe. Hello from Toronto, actually just outside of Toronto in Laura, a small town, artsy town, fun town, and full of Christmas and definitely in the Christmas spirit. And I've said this before, I have never really been on the property of Sanctuary in Austin. I'm sure I will one day. But I do feel Sanctuary online, and this is the second year during Advent that I've participated. I do really feel that it's been a community. It's been a rock for me, a place of refuge, even from a distance, as I buried both my parents this time last year. And then this year, it's a totally different scene, but connecting every Tuesday and learning and sharing really has been significant in my life this year. And I met Joe and Cheryl through business. I don't even know how many years ago it is. And that was before Sanctuary was just an apple in your eye. It wasn't even anywhere near a reality. So you've come such a long way. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. So tonight's candle is the rose one, the rose candle. It's actually the candle of joy. And different than the first 2 weeks, which were pretty dark in terms of finding hope in the face of hopelessness and the seriousness of needing to grip on to hope. And then the second one, finding peace amidst the ravages of war. Countries are up in arms. Finding peace of heart through the threat of COVID, and it just doesn't seem to want to give up. And so joy is the breath of fresh air tonight, as we still wait and prepare. So I went to the scriptures because I love the word joy. And so the scripture says, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit, you may abound in hope. The joy of the Lord is my strength. For the Lord, you have been my help, and in the shadow of your wings, I will sing for joy. My soul clings to your right hand, and it upholds me. And then the fruit of the Spirit, of course, is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against these things, there's no law, just love and joy. Joy is among the most unmistakable marks of a faithful heart. And so our faith leaves us no choice. We cannot help but give joyful thanks, even amidst the dark, short days. And up here, it's dark, long nights right now. And we just give thanks to the joy of our salvation. So tonight, make a joyful noise unto the Lord. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come into his courts with praise. Be thankful and speak well of his name. And joy to the world. The Lord is come. Let us all receive our King. Let every heart prepare him room. And may heaven and nature sing. Amen.
Amen.
So light with me the candle of joy, the rose candle, the breath of fresh air in the darkness, and know that amidst the joy, there is peace and hope, Oops, it just blew itself out. And may you continue to prepare as the Lord comes.
Mhm. Thank you, Jane Ann. Beautiful. Appreciate that. Ken, would you love to bring us into an understanding of Islam and how fire and light shows up in the Islamic tradition? And I have to draw attention, Ken, to what
Thank
you're
you,
wearing.
Joe.
Gorgeous.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'll explain in just a minute. So tonight we are visiting the symbols and the celebrations of the religion of Islam, which is actually the second largest religion in the world, with almost 2 billion adherents right now. And so in honor of that, what I am wearing tonight is my shalwar kameez, which is the traditional dress for Muslim men around the world. It and this beautiful green glass and gold bead necklace were given to me when I visited Pakistan a few years ago. Like a lot of other religions, including the Catholic and Orthodox parts of Christianity, Islam also has prayer beads. And these are my Muslim prayer beads that were also presented to me as a gift when I was in Pakistan. So first, the most important thing for us to say tonight is that Islam is different from all of the other great religions, both in its symbols and in its celebrations. From the inception of Islam, the religious leaders and authorities really discouraged and even prohibited any kind of symbol that would represent the religion or any part of the religion. But, and as you probably know, any likeness of the Prophet Muhammad is strictly forbidden within Islam. But people love symbols. People love symbols because they are simple, and quite often they are beautiful, and they recall into our consciousness the reality that lies behind the symbol so easily and immediately. And as we said on the first night, it is so important for us always to remember that the reality behind the symbol is always bigger than the symbol, and it is always more important than the symbol. But because people love symbols, down through the generations, a number of different symbols have arisen and been welcomed by the adherents of the religion of Islam, so much so that today we see a number of them and that are recognizable almost to everybody in the world. And this has happened despite the fact that religious leaders and authorities have always discouraged that. And so that speaks, I think, to the power of symbols. So tonight we're going to look at a few of these most important symbols. The first one is the most recognizable around the world as a symbol for Islam. It is the Star and Crescent. It is revered by Muslim people around the world as a symbol for their religion, so much so that we see it today present in and above mosques all around the world. It is also a part of the flags of a number of Islamic countries like Pakistan and Tunisia and Algeria and Turkey and Libya. But the origins of this symbol are very interesting because this symbol actually predates Islam by millennia. It was a symbol of the Ottoman Empire, which today, of course, is Turkey. And historians believe that as Islam moved into modern day Turkey and became the religion there, the Muslim people appropriated this symbol to themselves. It's a symbol that did not originate in Islam, but one that had existed for 1,000 years before Islam began, but which Muslims easily took unto themselves as a symbol of their religion. Historians call this cultural diffusion, when a symbol or an idea or a belief or a style just easily over a period of time transfers from one culture into another culture. So this is the most recognizable symbol worldwide for the religion of Islam. The next symbol we're going to look at is called the Rub el-Hizb. If we can see that one, Joby. And in the blue one on the left, you will see that this symbol is essentially two squares, one of which is parallel with the earth, and then the second square is superimposed over it at a 45-degree angle. And this particular symbol is very prevalent in Islam. The word rub in Arabic means 1/4, and the word hizb means of a section. And so this symbol is found over and over and over again in the Quran, the sacred writings of Islam, to separate one section from another. It's less familiar to us than the adaptation of it that you see on the right. On the right, you can see the exact same symbol, except that it has been stylized in a certain way. And that symbol on the right, you will probably recognize from a lot of architecture in mosques and in homes and in other buildings that are part of Islamic culture today. And then there is a third adaptation of this same, Joey, if we can go to the next, of the Rub el-Hizb. When it is pictured in this way, which is simply the outline of the two squares forming an 8-point star, it has its own name. It is called the Khatim, and it is a symbol for the most important confessional statement within Islam, which is called the Shahada. We began this series with Judaism. Almost all of the great religions have one sentence, one confessional statement, which embodies the most important core belief of that religion. In Judaism, that is called the Shema, and it says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one, the Lord is one." That is the heart of Judaism. Judaism's great contribution of radical monotheism to the world of religion. Last week, we saw that confessional statement in Hinduism, in Sanskrit, says Tat Tuam Asi, which means I am that, or my individual soul is a part of the great soul. And the purpose of my religion is to reunite my soul with that great soul. Next week, we're going to discover that Christianity has exactly that same very important, simple statement from its very beginnings. But in Islam, it's known as the Shahada, and it says, La ilaha illa Allah, Muhammad Rasul Allah. The first statement is, there is no God but Allah. And that is to establish that, like Judaism, Islam is a monotheistic religion. The second phrase says, and Muhammad is God's prophet. So within Islam, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is God's prophet, is represented by this symbol, the Khatim. And for Muslims, what this means is that Muhammad is the last, the final, the perfect, the complete prophet of God. Islam recognizes that Jesus was a prophet of God, but they believe that Muhammad came after Jesus and was the final and perfect prophet of God. So this katim, this particular symbol, represents that shahada, that foundational, simple, core belief statement of Muslims. Next, Joby. The last one we're going to look at is also very familiar. It is the simple word Allah, calligraphied in Arabic. And we see this in a lot of different places within the Islamic world. And this is so interesting because legend says that the first time Muhammad entered the city of Mecca, what he experienced there was a giant thoroughfare right down through the middle of the city of Mecca. And on each side of it were 50 statues of deities, so that there were 100 statues. And at the base of each of them, there was a name of that deity. And each of them were tribal deities that had been worshipped by these desert tribes, for centuries. And then the 100th deity, the very last one, had at the base of it the name Allah. And beneath it, an inscription that said something like, "May this deity represent all of those that we have forgotten to name in the other 99. And so Muhammad chose that name, Allah, to be the name of God within his new religion of Islam. So that's how the name Allah became the name. There is only one God, and that God encompasses all of these other gods and any that we may have forgotten about or we may not even know about yet. And so Allah is this great name for all of deity and meant to encompass all of the different gods and goddesses that the people would have worshipped up until that time. Okay, so those are the primary symbols of Islam that have come into popularity, that are revered by Muslim people, that are recognized by other people around the world, even though the religion of Islam, in terms of its leaders, always say there are no symbols and we will not allow symbols. But the people themselves have adopted, make them probably even more important and more powerful. But Islam is also different from the other religions in terms of its celebrations, because Islam is the only one of the great religions that has no festival, no celebration, no ritual that derived in the past, in the distant past, as a way of celebrating this season of the year, this solstice, which we are celebrating as fire and light. All of these other religions have these very important, clear festivals that involve. Islam has none of those. Islam, of course, has two great festivals, Ramadan and Eid, but they take place, totally different time of the year. So as I began to research this, I found the most fascinating thing, and that is that Islam has developed its own ritual and celebration for the winter solstice within our lifetimes, within most of our lifetimes. And trying to find out where this began, I found out that many years ago, there was a mother, a Muslim mother, whose little boy, whose name was Kian, was in the first grade. And he came home from school one day and he said, "Mother, today they asked us which festival we celebrate at this time of year." And most of his classmates had said Christmas, and a few of his classmates had said Hanukkah, and two of his classmates had said Christmas and Kwanzaa, And his mother said, "What did you say?" And so he said, "I didn't know what to say. So I just said season, season." And so this mother began to develop an idea of a celebration for Muslims of the winter solstice called season. Sometimes it's called season, the celebration of winter solstice, but for the most part, it's just called season. And now contemporary Muslims all over the world are beginning to practice their celebration of season. And it has 10 different activities that Muslim families and Muslim communities can celebrate together to acknowledge this season of the winter solstice. So I want to just very briefly tell you what these 10 are, because I think they are a wonderful insight into what Islam is really all about. And as you know, there is a horrible distortion, of this religion happening in the world right now. But this will reveal to us the heart of Islam, the 10 ways to celebrate the winter solstice. The first one is to study the winter solstice as a celestial event. They acknowledge that before any of the great religions existed, December the 25th was marked as a specific and special time when the light began to return. In the Northern Hemisphere, as you know, the winter solstice is December the 21st. That's the longest day of darkness that has the shortest period of light. And then for 3 days, the sun seems to lie dormant. And then on the 25th, the sun begins to come back and there is more light than there is dark. So even from prehistoric times, people have celebrated the winter solstice as the death of the sun and then the rebirth of the sun. And so the first thing that Muslims encourage everyone to do is study this as a celestial event and understand exactly what causes the light and the darkness to shift during these times. The second way to celebrate season is to discuss winter solstice celebrations around the world. That's exactly what we've been doing here. We've been doing them in terms of the great religions, but for season, they celebrate them more culturally, and they specifically study 3 different ones. One is called the soil celebration, and it is of the Hopi Native American peoples of North America, which they teach has been celebrated for over 1,000 years. At winter solstice, the Hopis celebrate this as a way of asking for protection for the coming year. The second is a celebration in Iran, which originated over 1,000 years ago in Persia, and it is called Shab-e-Yalda, and it is a time for people to come together, eat wonderful food, and stay up all night as a way of welcoming the sun back into the world. The third thing is to make evergreen crafts. They acknowledge that ancient Egyptians, ancient Hebrews, ancient Chinese all brought evergreens into their homes during the winter as a sign of everlasting life, as a sign of eternity, as a sign that spring and the sun would come again. And so the third way they celebrate season is to bring evergreens into their homes and to teach the children to make garlands and wreaths and beautiful things out of the evergreens that they gather around their homes. The fourth thing, which I think is fascinating, is to study snow science. It is to study the science of what snow is, of how snow forms, of what snow is, how is snow created, and then to teach the children to cut out intricate representations of snowflakes and to hang those all over their homes as a way of decorating their homes, to study snow science. The fifth thing is to sing winter songs and tell winter stories. Tell stories about people who live in cold climates and the weather, and to sing winter songs. And they specifically talk about singing non-religious winter songs, and they list Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer as songs to sing during this time, and other songs that are specifically about the winter solstice, and they list specifically Deck the Halls. I never thought about it, but if you think about the words of Deck the Halls with Bowser, it is about the winter. It is a song about the winter solstice. So that is the fifth thing. The sixth thing is to eat a lot of sweet, delicious, fatty stuff. The festival of season can last 3 or 4 days. And the idea is during that time, there are no dietary restrictions. You get to eat as much as you want of everything you want, especially foods that are sweet and delicious and fatty, especially to eat a lot of fat during that time. The seventh activity of season is to celebrate with a lantern. Every person, adults and children, are to have their own lantern, and they light their lantern, and that lantern is to burn all night long on the night of the winter solstice, just as a symbol of light in darkness, and the hope of the light returning from the darkness. And then the eighth follows that one by they call it take a winter stroll. And it is everyone goes outside with their lantern. If you live in a city, gather in groups of your family or your mosque or whatever, and walk the streets of the city carrying your lantern. Or find a park and walk around the park carrying your lantern. If you live in the country, walk down dark country lanes, aware of the silence and the darkness, and carry your lantern out into the dark and then bring it back in. The ninth thing is to honor nature by feeding your animal friends. It is to be aware of the needs of animals, particularly this time of year, and their need for food. And so they encourage activities like teaching how to build bird feeders and other feeders for feeding other animals, and then to provide food for all of our animal friends, to honor nature by feeding our animal friends. And then the 10th and the last one is to give back to those in need. Charity is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. No religion focuses as much on giving to those in need as Islam does. And so the 10th and final thing is to be aware that winter can be a very dangerous and difficult time for many people, and to look around you and become aware of what people around you need, and then to share the abundance of your life with all of those other people. So those are the 10 activities of season, which is the newest of all of the celebrations of the winter solstice. So I want to close again, as I have the first 2 weeks, with this quote from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. He says, "Though my religion is not your religion, and your religion is not my religion, if each of us is allowed to light our own flame, then together we can dispel the darkness of the world." So I think that number 10, Joby, leads us right into our next discussion, doesn't it?
It does, Ken. I'm going to remove the pin from you and encourage all of you to go up to your right hand, top of your screen, and in the view, click it down to gallery again. You can see everybody's faces. And tonight, Ken, you've got a question though. And I think there's probably 2 questions. I have one. But Barb, you're saying in what part of the world did the celebration of season begin? Do you know where the story comes from, Ken?
Yes, it comes from the United States.
Yeah, I wondered. It sounded
Yes,
like it.
it actually came, yes, it came from the United States. That mother that I mentioned, whose son Kian came home and told her this story, which caused her, she called herself the Islami Mommy, the Islami Mommy. And she wrote an article about this and her son feeling left out because he didn't have a celebration, and so she encouraged other mothers. And I think this is a mother movement. I think this is a movement of Muslim mothers to create this new season. But, you can start Googling it and learn more about it yourself, if you wanted to. But that original Islami Mommy was here in the United States.
I wondered about that. And I think, Barb, you've got one more question for Ken?
Yeah, Ken, I kind of thought that it might have started in the United States or Canada or, the northern parts of Europe. And I wondered if you have any idea if it's catching on at all in the Middle East or Africa. I mean, the thing and the what I'm really thinking is, the more I learn about Islam, the more I understand how focused on peace and helping the religion is, and the more jarring it becomes when I see or hear hateful comments or anything.
Repeat your last statement.
I just said that I was wondering about about this because more personally and how focused my religion is on peace and helping, the more I'll type. My internet is not cooperating, so I will type.
Yeah, if I understood that right. What I've been able to learn so far, Barb, is I am seeing words like contemporary and Western connected with season. So I don't know if that means it has not gotten any foothold, in the Middle East, or whether it is just, because this is sort of in the West is where it originated, if it is more comfortable for Muslims, in the West, to be developing this new tradition and celebration or not. And I suspect that's probably true from what I know about Islam. I suspect, that this kind of celebration is much more prevalent, in the West than it is in the East.
It's amazing because I had a number when I was hosting Airbnb in Toronto. I had a number of people practicing Islam coming to live in Canada. So I was sort of their first stop as they were, and they might stay 5 or 6 weeks while they're finding places to live and stuff. But they were fascinated by the seasons, just fascinated. So the fact that the taking care of the birds and feeding the birds in the middle, they were fascinated by the fact that even the birds could survive, like the cardinals and chickadees and building birdhouses and snow, studying snow. And we were talking about every snowflake being different and seeing it under a microscope. They're like, wow, like this is, for what was really amazing was exclamations of, wow, this really makes me believe in God. Like, wow, like as creator. And so, so we had a lot to share and a lot to learn from one another, but those 10 things, they were all fascinated coming to, from Turkey, from Syria, from Cairo, from like all East, and being a part of the 4 seasons, what which we have in Toronto, and snow. They were like wanting to jump in the snow and be immersed in a snowflake, and couldn't believe it was water, right? It was really cool. So I get it. I get that they're educating, but it does sound very Western, doesn't it?
Well, no,
It
I think leading back,
It does sound,
go ahead. I mean, I was
Joe,
thinking,
you're gonna say?
yeah, I was thinking you, Jane, it's just neat to have those real life experiences when someone's in front of you experiencing something new, right? And being in awe. And yet back, Ken, it's interesting as we lift up these things of wonder, of joy that the Islamic tradition can teach us and wants to teach us and wants to share. This is Barb's comment at the very end. I know her internet's not working well, but it's tough when we hear things like Islamophobia and we see outright hatred in North America toward folks whose religion is of peace and teaching and helping those in need. So I wonder if you can speak to that at all. And then we'll go on to our story time or our conversation time.
yes, I would say Islam is the most misunderstood of all of the great
agree.
religions. Recently, we have had these experiences of a tiny minority of people, jihadists, who are terrorists, and there is no excuse for who those people are. But for some reason, people in the West have seemed unable to realize that those people, listen to Muslims. Muslims will tell you those people are not Muslims. Those people do not observe the teachings of Islam. We have this horrible instance of Islamophobia going on in the House of Representatives of the US Congress right now, where one representative has called another one a terrorist because she is a Muslim and wears a hijab. That is so, the ignorance in that is almost incomprehensible. As a Christian, I am so glad that the whole Christian faith is not judged by the Inquisition or by what today is being called the white nationalist Christian movement, which is gaining popularity, in this country, or even by a lot of things that are in the Bible, for God's sake. I am so glad that Christianity is not judged by those things. Or the Crusades. The Crusades were about killing as many Muslims as you could possibly kill. And so, Christianity is not judged by those minority people or those unique events, nor should Islam and Muslim people be judged by a tiny minority of violent terrorists, jihadist people, because they do not represent the religion. The first Muslims I ever met, when my ex-wife and I when I was in seminary, we lived in an apartment building, and a young Muslim couple moved in across the hall from us, and he wore the traditional male attire and she wore a hijab. And we tried several times, to kind of very gently speak to them. They were very, very distant and very removed. And after a period of months, we finally were able to make friends with them so much that we could talk about this. And they told us that they were terrified of us. Both of them were PhD students at the University of Louisville. I don't remember their fields, but both of them were scientists of some kind. These brilliant, amazing people. And we almost missed the opportunity, of getting to know them simply because they were so suspect of us and why we might want to get to know them because of experiences that they had. So yes, I would say Islam is the most misunderstood religion, and that it's up to people of faith and goodwill to really help to stomp out this Islamophobic wave that is, the incidence of violence against mosques, has just risen astronomically in the last couple of years. And I would say there is no reason for this because Islam really is a religion of peace.
And speaking of that, and speaking of a religion that's helping others, I think it's a great transition time. We're getting a little behind here, folks. I know there's some great stories out there. And even folks who weren't able to make it tonight, I promised them all, they sent their stories in of doing acts of service. So I'm going to kick this off really quickly by just sharing a couple, okay, from out there. Darcel, Kristen couldn't be with us tonight, and Dr. Aaron couldn't be with us tonight, and Darcel couldn't be with us tonight. But Darcel used to be in charge, and Ken or Tom, maybe you can elaborate a tiny bit. She used to be in charge of something called the Stamp Out Hunger food drive. And as you know, Darcel was a letter carrier and retired from a wonderful career in the US Post Office. And what she said is, in the 25 years that she ran it, just in Burbank, California alone, they collected and distributed over 1 million pounds of food during the Christmas holiday. Now, can you believe that? 1 million pounds of food over 25 years where Darcel ran that. And then Joan Denemy, my cousin, who can't be there tonight as well, she says, you know, how many of us hopefully donate to food banks and toy drives? And something that the internet is allowing us to do more recently, they've got a GoFundMe for her granddaughter's mother was just recently diagnosed with gastric cancer. And so she has to stay in a hotel room for a month while she gets chemo and radiation, again, over the Christmas holiday. And so they put up a GoFundMe. Joan did that. And I thought, again, just something quite thoughtful that the internet allows us to, you know, bring a person's situation to bear and then say anybody, a little bit here, a little bit there adds up to a way where you can really help out somebody with an unexpected, you know, financial burden. And then Brendan Boone, unable to be here tonight. He is helping a couple members transition into eternity. And he said, when he was in North Carolina as a pastor there, he encouraged folks to designate 10% of whatever they spent on Christmas cards or Christmas gifts and donate that to any organization serving those who are less fortunate. And this year, he says, people still reach out to him and explain what they've given their 10%, you know. And he said, when folks are asking where to give this year, he said, there's a state of Kentucky relief fund for the tornado victims down there that he's encouraging folks to give to if they take on a cause like that. So just a few out from folks who can't be there tonight. Lisa, you actually were the only one, God bless you, who sent in some photographs. So can I show those two and maybe you start us off and tell a couple stories here? Because this one is interesting.
Sure.
Something to do with Big Boy. That's what I know.
They call him something else here. But what happened was, as many of you may have seen the story kind of crossing the internet about folks heading to a restaurant and having breakfast or lunch or dinner and basically come in with $100 bill. And, you know, most everyone buys something very small and then tips the rest of the $100. So one of my friends, the gal actually who took that selfie in the top left picture, she said, oh, I'd love to do this someday. And I said, I'm in. And then all these other folks jumped on the bandwagon. And so about 12 of us, I think, showed up. And it was really interesting. The waitress that we were hoping to gift didn't come in that day. And so the actual manager of the restaurant served us, but she took all of the tips and then spread it across all the cooks and the servers in the restaurant. So I was just super happy. We're actually continuing it over the course of the year. Whenever somebody has an opportunity to go out to lunch or something like that, everybody's going to get invited. And then it probably won't be $100 every time because that becomes a budget item. But so a new tradition for me and many of these folks.
Good for for you. Good for you, my friend. You know, and there you can do that even without doing it in a group, right? You could take an amount, whatever you can do with a budget, and head to have breakfast. Yeah, in 4 different restaurants over the Christmas holiday or something like that. Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. The next one, you sent another one in here that we all know, those Marines, right? Near and dear to our heart.
Yep. Hurrah. Yeah, this one is actually kind of a very cool story as I was thinking about it. When the kids were late elementary, early middle school, you know, we just showered our boys with gifts, and it was probably, you know, trying to be, quote, good parents, not having great examples of parents as we were growing up. And not to say that our folks didn't try hard, just, you know, not great outcomes and so on. So, you know, the kids taught us, they asked us, why do you give us so much? And so from that point on, you know, Bill and I would lay everything out on the bed, and it was the end of the story is still too much, but we would lay everything out on the bed and make sure that, you know, okay, the kids got a certain amount, and whatever we had overbought, we basically took to Toys for Tots. And then actually we're Yvette and I were today, they were doing a collection for Toys for Tots. So that kind of extended our tradition. But, you know, it really was born out of our children teaching us, you know, about this, the wonderful idea of giving, and, you know, but that there is a too much, and, you know, trying to keep it in alignment with our beliefs of what we're trying to do with that. And then, you know, obviously we do other things. These were just two on the fly that I wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that.
Jody,
Yes, Ken?
Jody, I haven't thought about this in many years, but in 1975, I was the pastor of MCC in Chicago, and our church collected a lot of toys for a Christian organization in North Chicago. Can't remember the name of it now, but it was a lot of different Christian churches, and they were asking for toys for the children, and we collected a lot of toys, and we took them, and they refused to accept them because they were coming from MCC. And the Marines Toys for Tot heard about this, and they came to our church and brought media with them and gratefully accepted all of those toys and took them and gave them to children.
Wow.
The Marines did that.
You know, Ken, that's super. Tell it to the Marines. Ken, I really appreciate you telling that story, because I think what we forget sometimes in this season is, while it's about all of us because we're all children, you know, it is about the children. And, you know, it's, you know, I think for us as adults, you know, bringing that magic every year, hopefully throughout the year, but especially this time of the year, bringing that magic to the kids, and remembering it is, you know, just another teaching opportunity for us around whatever that is, faith, belief, spirit, and so on. And some people get it.
Yeah. Yeah, Ken, I actually saw, it's funny, I had TV on in the background today. There was a soccer game in Europe. I don't know if you all know this tradition, but they were throwing teddy bears from the stands, from an arena, and they're throwing thousands and thousands of teddy bears in, and all the athletes were scooping them up. And that tradition, again, is to give to kids who wouldn't have teddy bears and stuff for Christmas. But it was, I can't even imagine. You got to see this. Google, I don't know, European football throwing teddy bears for Christmas or whatever, but it was this cool video, and they were just doing it out of the stands at one of the games. And it was just so, I thought, yeah, it's about the kids, Lisa, and it's about athletes, you know, anybody who has a big, a stage, you know, a platform, absolutely, that can say, do this, you know, share. Yeah. Yvette, I know you came with a story. What do you all do? What does your family do?
Well, this is about, well, our family, what I want to share is not about the family, but the family church.
Yeah, okay.
So when I was in Sacramento, when I was in Sacramento, one of the things was two things. One was we had like an angel tree, and what we did was bought gifts for children of prisoners in the Sacramento area,
Wow.
because they were, just weren't getting that. So whatever their wish was, they had it on these cards, and we would just go and pick one and choose one. And then we would present all of the gifts to the kids. So we did that on a yearly basis. I was in Sacramento for 20 years.
Wow.
And then the last 3 years that I was in Sacramento, I danced at church on the dance team. And so we would go to the women's prison at Christmas and do, a couple dances for them, and it was one of the leader, the choreographer, she worked till retirement in the system at this juvenile place, and young adult. And so she just took the troupe, and we would just go and do praise dance, to service for them during the holidays. So those were two of the things that I've done just recently when I was in Sacramento that I wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you, Yvette. How beautiful. How beautiful.
Yeah.
Who else brought a story to
It
share?
really was.
I'm sorry, Yvette?
No, I'll say it really was because the women that were, when we look, I've never been behind bars, except when we were little kids. For some reason, they felt that we needed to go to the jailhouse, the city jail. That was one of our, it's a shame to say, but it was one of our tours, one of our field trips. And it was one of those things to scare us into being good. And it worked for me because I heard the clinging of the bars.
Yes.
And so when I went back there, that was something for me to get past, because I had never been in a place like that since. And just to know, just to see the faces of those and the bodies of those women behind bars that are not able to get beyond that. It was a humble experience to dance for them and to praise and to worship and for them to receive us. It was just as healthy for us as it was for them.
Yeah.
And to be, even though we couldn't hug them or shake hands with them, but we were in the same room with them.
Yeah.
And that presence made a change in all of us. So it really made us, and when I say us, the ones of us that were on the team, to be appreciative of where we were and our freedom that we have in praising God and worshiping God. So
Absolutely.
just wanted to,
Yeah. Thank you,
share
Yvette.
that as well.
Thank you. Who else brings a story tonight of some way that you or an organization that you're part of or your family kind of offers an active service during this season? Peter.
Hi.
I'm going to combine a little bit of last week's sharing, which I didn't do, with this, and it's unfortunately not current, but from childhood. We as a family, which included immediate family and all of our cousins and close relatives who lived in the area and kids, every year had a birthday party for Jesus. And it was a wonderful family gathering. But there are a couple of things that happened there. We were always taught about the Christmas story, of course, but we were also taught about Jesus' commandments and about the fact that it was important for us to give to other people. And so every year as kids, we had, I'm sorry, I live on a very busy street. We had to bring a toy that had been ours that we wanted to share with another child who didn't have one. And so as kids every year, we brought a gift, and that was our gift to Jesus, knowing it would be given to other kids. And our parents made sure that happened. But then we also, of course, received gifts from Santa Claus. And that was a wonderful, fun experience because none of us knew who this man was. He would just appear. And the adults mostly didn't know who he was either. And so they were always just as surprised. To this day, all of us who had that experience, the ones who are still alive, of course, every year become animated, talking about and remembering our birthday parties for Jesus. Our only sadness is we don't live close enough anymore to be able to do that for the younger generations.
Yeah.
But that's the memory I wanted to share, and the practice, because I think it's one that has merit to think.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I'm in love with your background. It's gorgeous. As Peter was gonna speak, someone else was that Anna? Was that you? We were speaking,
Yes,
in?
yep, it was me. I have lots and lots of things. I'm trying to narrow down. I was very fortunate to grow up with a mother with a huge heart. So our whole lives, she made sure that we always were giving back and doing really neat things. But I would say two of my favorites. One, I found out when I was in high school because I was trying to put together a food drive, that they got a lot of food from the churches to do a Christmas lunch for people, but they never would have people come in and volunteer because people didn't want to give up their Christmas day. So I was able to get some of my friends to start doing that every Christmas, and we'd go in and set up the tables and get everything ready to go because they couldn't do it early because they had events the day before. And a lot of my friends to this day that still live there will message and say they're now taking their kids to do that. And I was in high school in the 90s, so it's really awesome. I mean, I'm in the Dominican now, so I don't do it. But, they just ask people to give like 2 hours either in the morning or lunch or dinner, depending on when you do your festivities. And it was just a really nice experience to get to do that and help set that up for people. And then when I was an admissions counselor at a college, we had a school that we worked a lot with that was juveniles that had got in trouble and were sent away to live in this home. And we found out that a lot of them didn't get to go anywhere for Christmas. So we started as a college adopting those kids, and they literally were the most appreciative kids. And I mean, they didn't even want anything that big. It was very small gifts, but a lot of times I think those types of places people forget about. A lot of people buy the toys and all the stuff, but these were a group of teenagers that just wanted a new sweater or a spray cologne, like the Axe spray that was a few dollars, and it was like such a huge thing for them. And, I really loved doing that. And then now that I live in the Dominican, Christmas is not a day for giving and holiday, like they don't really do a lot of gifts, but they actually, Three Kings Day in January is the big thing here. So I've been able to get involved in a lot of things with that, with the different nonprofits that I work with, and do celebrations with the Three Kings Day with all of the kids in January.
Good for you. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's like an arc of the things you've done in your life in the same way. But even that becomes tradition, right? And this is a season of giving, and beyond our family, like Lisa was saying, it's always, well, maybe it's not always, it's often too much for our own families and children, right? And so a little bit for somebody else can really go a long way when they don't have anyone gifting them, so even with presents. Yeah. Jamie, are you next?
It's funny. I was just thinking that the church that I came from in Toronto, the food bank did a toy mountain, and they had one room that was piled sky high with toys for the kids. But my Sensible Shoes group decided, this was 2019, that the moms who that were coming through the food bank, they would all get a toy and could pick for their age group and whatever, and it was massive, but there was nothing for them. So our Sensible Shoes group, which was based on the novel series, we all got together. There were 8 of us, but they each said they would do 2 or 3. And you know how when you change purses and stuff, or you change wallets, you find like a $10 bill, like somewhere in there, or all of a sudden you come across money that you didn't know you had. So in all of the gloves and in all of the wallets and purse, so it was for the moms. We did stuff for the moms. And there was a $10, we just tucked a $10 bill into whatever the piece it was. So whatever they picked, they were going to come across at $10 that they might not have otherwise had. And so that was in 2019, but then 2020, everything was in lockdown, but they still were able to do the food bank. So we still organized it. So that first year we had about 50 gifts for the moms. And last year we had 100 gifts for the moms.
Wow.
And I don't know what I moved, but I'm still doing it with them. And it's just grown and grown and grown because the parents don't always get, of course, everybody wants something for the kids and they want them to have a gift. But it's nice for the parents too. So it started out with 20 and now it's at 100 and some, and we'll see what happens this year.
Sounds fantastic.
But that was kind of a cool idea. It wasn't even my idea, but I love the idea. And of course, the first purse that I go to, I find a $20 bill tucked in the zippered piece of it, right? So off it went. And so that was cool.
Yeah, hidden gifts being paid forward. Janice, you've had your hand up a couple of times.
Yeah, I've always kind of looked at it like I had 2 children, and I always tried to take on a third, even if it wasn't a child, but what would equal giving to a third child for Christmas. And I would get a name or several names or a family name or something from different sources. Usually it was my church. We would have like that angel tree she was talking about. I like to do that. And I don't know, I just kind of started that out basically when I was a teenager. And then I'm also very proud of the little church that I attend right now because they have aligned themselves with a place in Liberty Hill that is like, you know, it's like a thrift shop or whatever, but they collect stuff for different families. And they were in bad need of a lot of food and a lot of clothing and things like diapers and so forth. And my little church that I go to, and I'm talking about maybe a membership of about 50, constant attendance of about 30 maybe. And we filled a trailer load about 2 weeks ago of just a huge amount of food and clothing and various things, some toys and so forth. They'd given us a list of things that they needed. And I mean, our new motto is we may be little, but we're mighty.
Yeah.
We're able to bring it all together. So
Absolutely.
I enjoy doing that.
Yeah, thanks, Janice. Okay, do you have something you want to throw in? You're just listening, loving and listening, right? These are great ideas. Yeah, I hope you all watched the video I sent most of you, or it's on our Facebook page. I'm just so excited that my family continues. You know, we've got a pretty big gang, and the people who grow into adults each year grows in number. And we used to be one of those families that said no big gifts, but everyone do $25 gifts or under $20 or this or that, and just couldn't find a way. And we did white elephants and we did steely games. We did everything you could ever think of. And finally, we're like, this is just ridiculous. And I don't know whose idea it was because this idea is 20 some years old now, But we took all those $20 bills, although anybody can donate whatever they want, and gave it to my older brother at Thanksgiving. And he was required to find a family, not an organization, but a family, just to surprise, you know, with whatever we collected that year. And I will always remember with Cheryl's in my years. So we rotated it. Then it was my oldest sister, then my next oldest sister, then myself. When it came down to my little brother, we had nieces and nephews that were adults. We went through them. And then we back up to my brother again. We've gone through this a number of times. And Cheryl, I'll never forget, you and I one time were in Columbus, right? Cleveland, at the Cleveland Clinic. My brother was having open heart surgery, and it was our year. And so here we are down in Cleveland for a couple of weeks, living down there with my brother and sister-in-law, just going through that with them. And we were able to send the money to Canada at a year when the exchange rate was like 30 cents, you know? So this pile of money that was always normally wonderful was 1.3 times as wonderful. And remember those, the call, Cheryl, I was looking out the window into the parking lot, you know, there at the Cleveland Clinic, and called one of the folks in our church who just has a big heart, was always giving her time and her care. She was an anesthetist, and she would do elderly folks' feet and hands, you know, to just care for them and to touch them and to gift them that way. And she, it was just the coolest thing to take a little bit from each of us. And we've done it, like I said, for probably 25 years. And it's our daughter's turn this year, right? Cheryl, for the first time, Rachel's doing it. So it's cool also to see each person's kind of journey to source. Janice, like you said, how do you find the source and then find someone that really resonates with you? And then the whole gift to the family is when the person whose year it was shares, you know, who their gift went to and why they made that choice. So it's been wonderful for us for many, many years.
You know, it's funny, Joe, because I sponsor two children, Spanish from Peru, and they Compassion Canada doesn't really allow you to kind of go overboard or give more unless it's for the whole class. So I was able to, when I finally started negotiating with them, I was able to send the same thing to Lorena, my little kid. She's now 6. She was 3 when I got her, but she's 6 now and she's in grade 1. So as long as I sent to the whole class, like enough of whatever for the whole class, then it was okay. So I had a lot of fun. And in the past, we've done the shoe boxes, you know, the shoe box, as much as you can put in a shoe box. Like there's so many great ways that you can give. And I always have such a blast doing it too. I love doing it. You know, my nephews, they just want cash. It's no fun. So I love being able to do like tangible things that people might not otherwise get themselves, or people really in need. And there's such a great, like COVID has just devastated so many people and families. And yeah, all great ideas. Yeah, I love that, passing it on through the family though, and choosing a family.
It's been fun. Ken, I know you and Tom have some traditions that you do every year, right? Giving to folks.
Yeah, our traditions in the past, you know, when I was pastoring, revolved a lot around our church, had a number of different ways of reaching out. We had what was called a deacon's tree. All of our deacons would go out and find you know, people, children or families who needed specific things, and they would put little angels on a big tree in the sanctuary, and people would take those off and buy that item, wrap it, bring it back. And sometimes half our sanctuary, you know, would just be just hundreds and hundreds of beautiful wrapped packages. And then the day after Christmas, or actually Christmas morning, our deacons would all get together and go out and spend the whole day, you know, delivering these things to people. Tom and I support a food bank, a little food bank here in our little town that's run by an Episcopal church now. And also, as Joe and Cheryl and Barb know, we just had a whole new HVA system put into our house this past week, which meant that they pulled everything out of it. We had to empty our closet so that they could get up into the attic to put new ducts and all that in. And that forced us to look at all of the clothes we have that we do not wear anymore, or to be more honest, cannot wear anymore. And so we have loaded boxes full of really nice clothes, that we are now giving to different places that need clothes.
Yeah, good deal. Barb or Cheryl, gonna close us up? I know we're going a little bit long tonight, but it's all about giving. So these are great ideas.
I'll close you out.
Cheryl, you're on mute,
Let
hon.
me like-
Hold on.
What?
Cheryl, do you have one more?
No, I was just gonna, it's very similar to the thing that we used to do in Toronto all the time, where we had what was called star boxes at the Toronto MCC church. And we became the largest depot of these star boxes. It was run by the newspaper
Yeah.
in Toronto.
Toronto Star.
And we would, huge rooms would be full of these things, and they'd give everybody who wanted to volunteer a route to take and deliver these to. And so Rachel and Joe and I would always get a route, and we'd have all these boxes that we would get to take, and we'd put on little Santa ears or reindeer ears or something, and we'd go up to these houses, and they were always just so happy for us to deliver these to them. And they were just beautiful boxes full of who knows what inside, just huge boxes, and they had lots of stuff for the kids. But that was always one of the most fun things that we ever did, because it was just so joyous for us to run around and find these places and deliver them to the kids and to the families.
So
So,
can I add one thing just really briefly? I as an MCC elder, I traveled around the world visiting MCC churches, and the people in the LGBTQ community are the most generous people I have ever encountered in my life. And I pastored what are so-called straight churches for 12 years before I came to MCC. I have never encountered this kind of generosity before. I went to the Philippines 7 times, and every time I went, except one, 6 out of the 7 times, the people in our churches there, many of them lived in hovels with dirt floors. They cooked on tiny little 1-burner kinds of things. They would take second jobs in order to, in the Philippines, Christmas is celebrated in the Burr months, September, October, November, and December. So the beginning of September, the Christmas trees go up. And those people in our churches would take second jobs to raise money to be able to take food and clothes and school supplies. And I can't tell you how many different orphanages we went to, and just carrying these things. And these were from people, many of whom had almost nothing themselves.
Yeah.
It's just a kind of generosity, that just really moves you and makes you understand what's really important in this world.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you everyone for your stories. I can see folks bouncing off because we're going long tonight. So Jane Ann, again, stories of generosity, get creative, find a way to give a little to someone. It will mean a lot. Jane Ann, why don't you close us off?
So may you find joy in your continued preparation and in your acts of service as we eagerly anticipate an intentional new birth, perhaps, in our lives, but not forgetting to pause to make room for Christ to enter in. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Go out and ponder, go out and share, go out and be joy this week. We will see you again on Tuesday, and Cheryl and I will be from Michigan. We're just going to grab a couple 1,000 miles between tonight and then. So we appreciate your prayers. Travel angels up.
Is next week about the hymns or the carols?
Oh yeah, that's
Did
right.
I miss
Yeah.
something?
No, we're gonna. Yeah.
Okay, because
we're
I said.
hoping, please, if you have a favorite Christmas hymn, take that in to talk to us at Sanctuary Online. We're having a little contest, Jane Ann. We're trying to figure out based on the results, if we should sing it together, if we should play it, if we should announce it. So, you know, just like anything else, vote once, vote often, whatever. Send them on in to talk to us. We will accept more than one vote from people who love more than one Christmas carol.
Okay.
All right. Love you all.
All
Night
right.
night.
Take care. Thank you.
Night,
Good
night.
night.
Night night. Night,
Good
Yvette.
night. Thank you.
Night, Peter.
Have a good night,
Bye,
everyone.
Maya. Say
Good
bye.
night, Joby.
Say bye, everybody.
Jenny,
Night,
good
Janice.
night.
Night,
Take
Anna.
care. Thank you, Peter, for your
Anna.
comments.
Night night, y'all.